Good morning to you. If you're joining the live stream, my name is Phil White, and it's great to have you with us this morning. We are in the year of infectious faith. Infectious faith is a faith that goes down deep, that affects all of us, but a faith that we can give away as well. And this month in October, we're looking at 5 weeks. We're looking at Sabbath, what that day means, that special day that the Bible talks about, describes as Sabbath. And what I want to do today is simply to set the scene. We've been discussing it as a church here this morning, and I just want to include a bit of an interview with a couple of people just to summarize what we've done this morning. But my experience, can I start off by telling you my experience of Sabbath? This is a very important discipline for Anne and myself, for my wife and myself. And to be honest, we've only been doing this for about 2 years, but I wish that I had been encouraged to do this 25 years ago when I was first ordained, because this has been one of the most important practices that I've taken on, as it were. And I call it a discipline. And this is a discipline like a discipline of stopping at the end of the day to watch an hour's television or whatever. That's a discipline that Anne and I have. We don't carry on with our computer typically. We stop and we watch the television just to wind down a bit. There's a discipline, isn't there, in stopping to eat a meal. There's a discipline we have to, Anne and I, we don't force ourselves, but it is a habit, as it were. It's a discipline. We sit down at the table and we eat together and we talk together. We do that with our 2 Ukrainian guests as well. We also have a discipline, I have a discipline of going to the loo before I go to bed. It's something I force myself to do, as it were, so that I don't have to get up in the night or get up less. You know what I mean? These are disciplines that are there for my good. These are all things that I have to do, but they bring me freedom, they bring me rest, and they bring me peace. And I have to start. Anne's been telling me for the last couple of weeks. She said, Phil, when you talk about Sabbath, you've got to come clean about how it's different for me than it is for you. Because my working day, one of my working days is Sunday. I can't take it as a Sabbath because I can't stop doing work, because this is my paid work, as it were. So Anne and I choose to take Friday as our Sabbath. Now, what about for you? What about Rick and Sam, who are sitting down here, for instance? You won't have to say anything, don't worry. But Rick and Sam have come along early this morning. They've set up all the guitar and the microphones and stuff, and they've worked hard this morning. Could they call today their Sabbath? Well, it might be a bit difficult because they've worked hard. So the trouble is, if we say everybody take a Sabbath on Sunday, then there'll be no one on refreshments, no one on welcome, no one on PA, no one on setup, because Phil, you've told us we can't do any work on the Sunday. So it's easier for me because I can set another day. And you could choose to do that as well if you want. You could choose a Saturday. But the trouble is, if you don't do any shopping on a Saturday and you don't really want to do any shopping on the Sunday, it's a bit difficult. So I know I've got it slightly easier. But what I want to encourage you to do is to think about this and to work out what you can do and how you might do it. If I tell you that Anne and I don't do a Sabbath every week, we usually manage to do it once or twice a month because other things get in the way. We were in Bristol on Friday visiting our son and daughter-in-law and Jacob, and it was actually quite difficult to do a Sabbath because for me, I have to stop using the phone, and we were using the phone for navigation and phoning and what have you, and it was difficult. What I want to do today, and we will unpack it over the next 4 weeks, is to just encourage you to think about Sabbath. We've just seen that passage, and we'll look at it again in a moment, from Isaiah 58, where God says, if you set aside the Sabbath as special, God will bless you, and you will come closer to God. That is my experience. And what I'd like to do is I'm just going to invite Andy and Julia to come up, and we're going to have a bit of a discussion summarising what we've done as a church this morning before the live stream started. So for those of you who are watching on the live stream, we just looked at 3 questions, and the first question was, this was really for the children to find out from the adults, but what was Sunday like when you were young? So the children asked some of us in our 80s or 90s, what was Sunday like when we were young? Second question is, what's it like today? And thirdly, what does God say about the Sabbath? So Andy and Julia, will you come and join me, please? You can pass the microphone between you. So we're just about summarising what we found out this morning, all right? So let's look at that first question. What was Sunday like for you when you were young? That was a question the children asked the adults. Did you pick up any answers? What were given to that question?
Yeah, I think very much it was a very quiet day. It wasn't very interesting sometimes. It was maybe a little dull. There was no children's TV, and so there was no time to watch television. It was very much a day of eating food in our group and doing very little.
Sorry.
Clear your throat, Andy.
Sundays for me, church, fairly Baptist and not too traditional per se. And that was fairly full, to be honest. Ali sent me a picture of holiday special in the summer, albeit not, maybe I don't know what it was. A full 300 people church. After church, lunch, the big match.
So you watched television when you were young?
Yeah. Persuaders.
Yeah.
And then down to the park with my brothers and my dad to get rid of some pent-up energy. My dad came back wrecked. Church in the evening, if you were spiritual, mature, old enough, which I did do when I was 16, 17.
You got old enough and mature enough, did you? Yeah.
Eventually. Yeah. And then there was a youth group after the church service in the evening.
I remember when I was a teenager, my mum and dad wouldn't let me go to the cinema on a Sunday night. That was definitely a taboo thing. We weren't allowed to do that.
Slightly older.
Okay. Thank you, Andy. Andy's slightly older, he's saying. But yeah. Okay, what about the second question? What did you find? This is not about your homes necessarily, but what's church like nowadays for us? What is Sabbath or Sunday like nowadays for modern families?
Well, it was really nice. I was with Henry, and he was telling me that he still goes home from church and has a nice big meal with his family. So I think food is still quite a focus for some of us. What else did we say?
What's church like? What's Sunday like now for the people you were listening to, or for yourself?
It can be really busy still, as you were saying earlier. I think, with setting up and other responsibilities of church, it can still be a day where we are getting quite tired. And so, having to put aside and have a special day separate to Sunday to make it different. But it's about having permission to take time out and to rest. That was one person said.
Yeah.
Just trying to accept that it is okay not to do anything today. We don't have to if we don't feel.
Andy, what did you hear?
I like that sentiment. I mean, me and Ali are really busy at the moment. So Sundays for me are to take it at a pace that is unrushed per se. You still have objectives. I want to get that done, but don't beat yourself up over it if you don't quite get round to it. But do something. But yes. Fairly open range, basically,
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the third question. My third question, difficult to answer, but we can find the answer in the Bible, I think. What does God say about the Sabbath? Susan, could you put the passage up from Isaiah 58, and I'll just read this out to us on the stream. This is taken from the Message version, which is a very modern translation. It's not really a translation, it's a rewriting. Let me read it to you. If you watch your step on the Sabbath and don't use my holy day for personal advantage, if you treat the Sabbath as a day of joy, God's holy day as a celebration, if you honor it by refusing business as usual, making money, running here and there, then you'll be free to enjoy God. Oh, I'll make you ride high and soar above it all. I'll make you feast on the inheritance of your ancestor Jacob. Yes, God says so. Thank you, Rick. What did you hear as we were thinking about that question? Do come in a bit earlier, a bit closer. So what does God say about the Sabbath?
I think, for me...
What's your response, as it were?
My response, to honour God, and he will honour you. Not that you're in it to be honoured by God, because you have to honour God first, and that's a decision, because life is busy, and you have to stop. So we come to church, and in that sense we are stopping and focusing on God. I think God does honour that. He sees your life, he sees your private life, he knows your intentions and desires, and if they are to honour God, he honours that. So I wouldn't worry about messing up sometimes, as long as your intention and actions broadly is to do that.
Yeah, thank you. Julia?
Well, I think it's about making a day a separate day, isn't it? And having a completely different focus of your day, and just giving yourself the opportunity to put life back into perspective. And I like that word in the passage there that talks about joy, and I think refreshment comes, doesn't it, when you have a complete change and a complete rest. And one of the members of our group, actually, Anne, she comes from a farming family, and as a child she remembers that her parents didn't go out into the fields and they didn't do any work, but they still managed to achieve everything that they set out to do at the end of the week. So they did in 6 days what their neighbours and everybody else around them was doing in 7. They didn't make it a priority to break.
Wow.
But yeah, so I think that's something that we should all take home, isn't it? That we should all remember that we can achieve what we need to do if we rest and pace ourselves.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us this morning. I just want to sum up before we end the stream, and then we're going to continue with our service. But I remember somebody I knew in Oxford. This was a student. She was Jewish, and she told me that on the Shabbat, on Sabbath, which is most of Saturday starting Friday evening, she said, I won't turn a light switch on, because we consider that work. And I said, how do you manage not to fall over in the dark in the evening then? She said, we have the lights timed. So we use a timer, we set them up the day before so that the lights come on automatically. But she went so far as to say she couldn't switch a light on. And there was a certain distance that she could walk, but she couldn't walk any further because of the rules as a Jew, as a practicing Jew, of what Sabbath is about. And yet Jesus, as Joan mentioned earlier, Jesus said, the Sabbath is made for man, not man for the Sabbath. In other words, the Sabbath, as that passage describes there, is supposed to be a blessing for us. And I know when I've spoken about Sabbath before, it's almost trying to persuade you to do something you don't want to do. That's sometimes the feeling I get, and I realise it's difficult. But I know that when Anne and I set aside our Friday, and when we do certain things, we decide not to do any work, the day just takes on a different meaning. It's almost as though Friday becomes in colour, whereas the rest of the week has been in black and white. We're going to keep talking about Sabbath for the rest of this month, and there's 5 Sundays in October, and the next 4 Sundays we're going to continue talking about Sabbath, and each week we're going to focus on one of 4 different words. Next week is stop. The following week is rest, the following week is delight, and the 4th one is worship. And that is what we find we do on our Sabbath. We stop doing anything to do with work. We rest. We delight. I tell you, we notice a far greater number of beautiful things on a Friday when we do this. And then the challenge I find, my biggest challenge, is actually turning that into worship. Saying to God, God, how amazing is what you've created. So this today has just been an introduction, admittedly, and please join us for the next 4 YouTube videos from the next 4 Sundays. And I hope you have a great day if you're joining with us on video at the moment, and thank you for joining with us.